In a historic day inside the UK Parliament, Prince William took the floor to deliver a powerful message that stunned lawmakers and royal watchers alike. His speech wasn't about family. It was about the future of the monarchy. What decision did he make about Meghan Markle, and why now? Parliament confronts royal title controversy. On January 30th, 2026, tension rippled through Westminster as Parliament prepared for a rare and historic debate. The removal of titles bill, beneath the weight of centuries-old tradition and the gaze of portraits in the House of Commons, MPs gathered to question who deserves to carry the privileges of royalty. The bill, first proposed in 2022 and revived in 2025, sought to give Parliament power to recommend revoking royal titles from those no longer performing public duties. This wasn't gossip or a tabloid distraction. It was a constitutional conversation about defining what royal means in a modern democracy. The issue reached its boiling point after years of public unease about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's post-royal ventures and Prince Andrew's 2025 disgrace. Lawmakers, echoing voices from Manchester to Edinburgh, argued that the monarchy's credibility depends on clarity. Service must be separated from celebrity. The BBC's political desk called it a reckoning moment for the institution. In packed galleries, journalists murmured as members from both parties took the floor. Conservative MP John Nicholson demanded accountability. No title should outrun duty. Across the aisle, Labour MP Harriet Mason agreed. This is about transparency, not revenge. Yet all eyes shifted toward one figure not bound by party lines, Prince William. His attendance in Parliament was extraordinary, symbolizing the seriousness of the hour. As heir apparent, his presence hinted that the crown itself supported reform. "We're witnessing royal history," a Sky News correspondent whispered as William's name was called. The Speaker granted him permission to address the House directly, an act unseen since Prince Charles's 2011 constitutional address. Every camera turned. Outside, protesters waved placards reading, "No title without service." Inside, the air thickened as whispers faded. The future king was about to weigh in on the most personal constitutional debate of his generation. And when he finally rose, papers rustled and silence fell like a curtain. Transitioning from political heat to royal gravity, the question became, would William defend family loyalty or the integrity of the monarchy itself? The answer arrived in his first carefully measured sentence. William enters the fray. The future king's weighty words. At 2:45 p.m., Prince William stepped to the center of the House of Commons, the rhythmic echo of his shoes against the marble floor silencing the chamber before he even spoke. The room, packed with over 400 MPs, journalists, and senior advisors, fell into a hush that felt almost sacred. This was no ceremonial visit. It was a constitutional crossroads. For the first time since Megxit 2020, a senior royal stood before Parliament to address the meaning of titles, service, and accountability. And it came not from a spokesperson or statement, but from the man destined to become King William V. Royal service is not a privilege. It is a promise to the public, William began, his voice steady yet commanding. The sentence struck like a gavel in the chamber. Those words, delivered in calm tones, immediately set the mood. It was a call to duty disguised as a warning, a reminder that monarchy without meaning becomes theater. For Buckingham Palace, this was more than rhetoric. It was the articulation of an evolving doctrine: responsibility over rank. William's message was direct, almost surgical in precision. He urged lawmakers to establish institutional clarity, defining where public duty ends and private ambition begins. He acknowledged that change was inevitable, but insisted it must come with structure. When representation is surrendered, he declared, so too must the symbols tied to it. Every sentence carried the cadence of consultation, likely refined by constitutional advisors and senior aides, yet infused with William's personal conviction. The tone was not emotional, but resolute, the mark of a man who knew the weight of every syllable. Observers noted that William avoided naming Prince Harry or Meghan Markle, but the reference was unmistakable. Without bitterness, he drew an invisible line between family loyalty and constitutional order. He then alluded to the Andrew precedent of 2025, saying, "When duty falters, consequence follows. Precedent exists when service is lost." The Guardian's political editor described the moment as the rare collision of monarchy and democracy, dignified, deliberate, and transformative. William continued, invoking his late grandmother's enduring wisdom. Duty first, self second. The room seemed to still further, as if even time had paused. It was more than homage. It was continuity, a signal that the principles of Queen Elizabeth II's reign would endure through his own. The future king wasn't defending the past, he was redefining it. As he neared the close of his 22-minute address, William's tone softened, but his message grew sharper. "Tradition without discipline becomes confusion," he said, eyes locked on the speaker. "We must preserve the meaning of royal service, not for today's comfort, but for the generations yet unborn." MPS across the chamber rose in quiet applause, a rare gesture in a space that seldom shows emotion. Even opposition members nodded in respect. By the time William stepped back from the dispatch box at 3:07 p.m., the atmosphere had changed entirely. The chamber felt smaller, as though the institution itself had been reminded of its own weight. Analysts on Sky News would later call it the most consequential royal statement in Parliament since 1936. The message was unmistakable. The future king had spoken, and the monarchy's next chapter had begun. As murmurs filled the room and Parliament prepared to move to the next agenda item, the legal definition of royal status, one truth was clear. This was no ordinary speech. It was a manifesto of monarchy in the modern age, and it had just redrawn the line between bloodline and duty forever. What royal status actually is, the legal framework. Inside Westminster, the tone shifted from passion to precision as lawmakers dissected what royal status legally means. Titles such as Duke, Duchess, and HRH aren't symbolic niceties. They are formal designations granted through letters patent, instruments signed by the monarch under royal prerogative. That means they cannot simply be taken away by Parliament without explicit royal consent. Historical precedent loomed large. In 1917, King George V revoked the titles of several German-linked royals during World War I, a reminder that removing status is rare and reserved for national necessity. Legal scholars inside the chamber pointed to Queen Elizabeth II's 1996 letters patent, which clarified title usage for divorced royal spouses. It's this document that still defines much of today's protocol. A key voice, Dr. Alison Reeves, summarized it best. Parliament can debate, but only the Crown can decide. This echoed through the benches as members considered how far their legislative reach truly extended. The removal of titles. Bill 2026, now in its third reading, sought to merge constitutional theory with modern accountability by allowing Parliament to recommend title removals, but only with sovereign approval. The complexity of the law revealed just how fragile the monarchy's balance between tradition and governance really is. One Guardian analyst wrote that the legal spine of the monarchy was being tested in real time. And as Prince William listened from his front row seat, the connection between centuries of royal law and the Sussex crisis became impossible to ignore. What began as debate over procedure was now evolving into a moral and constitutional reckoning, one that would flow directly into the next confrontation, the Sussex question itself. The Sussex Dilemma: Titles versus Independence. By the time the discussion reached the Sussex Dilemma, the chamber had shifted from legal theory to modern reality. In March 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced their decision to step back as senior royals, a decision that became known worldwide as Megxit. The Sandringham Summit later formalized the arrangement. They would no longer receive public funds and agreed to stop using the style His and Her Royal Highness. Yet, they retained the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex, creating an unprecedented gray zone, technically royal but functionally independent. On paper, the compromise looked tidy. In practice, it became a constitutional headache. Their titles continued to appear in event listings, Netflix promotions, and charity documents, blurring the distinction between public service and private enterprise. Critics inside Parliament argued that this dual identity undermined the very principle of accountability. You cannot claim independence while trading on royal privilege, one MP declared during the debate. Prince William, seated near the front, reportedly nodded when Lord Pembroke raised the question of whether title retention without service violated the spirit, if not the letter, of royal duty. "This isn't about punishment," William was overheard telling aides. "It's about clarity." That word, clarity, echoed across the House as the Sussex question transformed from gossip to governance. The tension was unmistakable. What started in California as a personal choice had evolved into a test of British constitutional identity. As William prepared to respond, members understood that this wasn't just about two people, it was about redefining the limits of monarchy in a world where image and influence now travel faster than duty itself. Andrew precedent. What happened to Prince Andrew? The chamber's energy shifted again as discussion turned toward the Andrew precedent, a case that had haunted Buckingham Palace for years. In October 2025, King Charles III formally approved a letters patent that stripped Prince Andrew of his HRH style and royal honors, marking one of the most serious internal disciplinary acts in modern monarchy. It came after a long investigation into his financial dealings and continued fallout from his association with Jeffrey Epstein. What made this move historic was not just its severity, but the message it sent. Titles were no longer untouchable shields. Inside Parliament, several MPs pointed to the Andrew case as proof that the monarchy could self-correct when duty and dignity diverge. "No one, however royal, stands above accountability," declared MP Rachel Whitmore during her address. The example reignited questions about how far the Crown should go to preserve public trust. After all, Andrew had signed a private settlement in the US, yet continued to reside at Royal Lodge under financial arrangements many Britons found unfair. For Prince William, this precedent carried symbolic and strategic value. It showed that the monarchy could adapt under pressure, that even a royal of Andrew's senior standing could lose privileges if conduct compromised the institution. Palace officials described the move as a constitutional firewall to protect the crown from reputational harm. The House of Commons acknowledged that while Parliament cannot directly remove titles, the King's decision had set a clear expectation. Royal status must be earned through behavior consistent with public service. As the debate closed, one point became clear. The removal of Andrew's titles in 2025 had paved the way for the current discussion about the Sussexes. It wasn't just about morality. It was about setting a precedent that could now shape royal policy for generations. And as William prepared his next statement, it was evident the Crown was ready to define once and for all what it truly means to bear a royal name. William's message: titles are responsibilities. When Prince William rose again to address the House, his tone had changed, sharper, firmer, and undeniably personal. He spoke not as a brother, but as the future king of the United Kingdom, the one expected to carry the monarchy through an era of global scrutiny. "A title is not a trophy," he began. "It is a responsibility, a living promise to the people." Those words drew murmurs of agreement from MPs across the aisle. He acknowledged the turmoil of 2020, the lingering confusion from Megxit, and the way royal symbolism had been blurred by commercial pursuits. His voice was steady, but his intent was unmistakable. "We cannot have titles that serve profit instead of purpose," William said, looking directly toward the public gallery. He referenced the Andrew decision once more as a cautionary tale, reminding Parliament that when honor and duty drift apart, correction must follow swiftly. Political commentators described his remarks as a doctrine of royal accountability. The Times called it the clearest statement of royal reform since Elizabeth's constitutional modernization of 1952. In essence, William drew a new boundary, one that tied privilege to public service, not personal branding. Behind the formality of his words lay something deeper, the conviction that monarchy must now operate with transparency to survive in the digital age. By the end of his address, the House of Commons fell silent again. Not out of deference, but contemplation. Even his critics admitted the speech struck the right tone between respect for heritage and demand for relevance. As the Speaker called for order, William's message lingered in the air like an unspoken royal decree. The era of automatic entitlement was ending. And with that declaration, the chamber moved toward its defining moment, the parliamentary vote that would make history. Parliament's dramatic vote. The day's tension reached its breaking point as the House of Commons prepared to vote on the revised removal of Titles Bill. Hours of debate had narrowed to one defining question: should Parliament have formal authority to request the revocation of royal titles from those who no longer serve the Crown? As the Speaker called the chamber to order at 6:05 p.m., every seat was filled. The galleries buzzed with anticipation. Reporters from BBC News and Reuters crowded the aisles, capturing the moment described by one political correspondent as the monarchy's most constitutionally charged day in decades. When the division bell rang, the tension was almost cinematic. Over 430 MPs filed through the voting lobbies, casting their ballots under the glare of cameras and history itself. The bill's supporters framed it as a modernization effort, an act of accountability to align royal privilege with public service. Its opponents warned it risked undermining the delicate line between Parliament and monarchy. But when the final count was read aloud, 312 in favor, 118 against, the chamber erupted. The measure had passed. In the press gallery, one journalist whispered, "This just rewrote the royal rulebook." It wasn't hyperbole. The vote meant that for the first time in living memory, Parliament had a direct procedural pathway, with royal consent, to recommend the removal of titles. It didn't dethrone anyone, but it changed the balance of power forever. William's speech earlier in the day had clearly swayed wavering MPs, many of whom admitted privately that his call for clarity and duty had tipped their decision. The reaction outside Westminster was immediate. Crowds gathered near Parliament Square, waving flags and chanting, Service, not status. Headlines across London lit up digital billboards. Historic vote redefines royal accountability. It was both a victory for constitutional reformers and a warning to any royal tempted to trade duty for influence. As the clock struck 7 p.m., one truth was undeniable. Parliament had spoken, and the monarchy would never operate in quite the same way again. The question now was how the royal family itself would respond to this public and political earthquake. Global reaction and royal family ripple effects. By dawn the next morning, the reverberations of the Westminster decision had spread far beyond the UK. In Ottawa, Canberra, and Wellington, Commonwealth leaders publicly praised the move as a step toward transparent constitutional practice. Even the New York Times described it as a modern monarchy moment, executed with surprising restraint. The international reaction underscored how deeply the royal institution remains woven into global political and cultural life. Within Buckingham Palace, however, the mood was far more cautious. Senior courtiers convened in an unscheduled meeting at Clarence House to interpret the implications. While King Charles III reportedly approved of Parliament's respectful tone, insiders revealed that he was deeply aware of the precedent now set. Sources close to Queen Camilla described the palace's stance as one of measured acceptance, recognizing that reform was inevitable, but wary of losing royal autonomy. Meanwhile, Prince William's speech dominated headlines around the world. The Times of London dubbed him the architect of royal reform, while CNN praised his composure as future monarch diplomacy. Even critics admitted the strategy had worked. He had strengthened public trust without alienating the institution. Across the Atlantic, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle remained silent, though U.S. media outlets noted that the bill's passing put new legal pressure on the Sussex brand. Closer to home, opinion polls released by YouGov the following day showed 68% public support for William's position and 72% approval of Parliament's decision. Constitutional scholars called it the most significant shift in royal accountability since 1936. In short, the ripple effects were no longer confined to speeches or symbols. They were structural. And as Britain's newspapers declared a new chapter in the monarchy's long story, one theme was clear. This was not the end of royal tradition, but the start of a harder, leaner, and more transparent age for the House of Windsor. The next test would be silence, and how the Sussexes chose to break it. Sussex response, or silence. In the 48 hours following Parliament's decision, the world waited for a reaction from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but none came. No statement, no post, not even a spokesperson's quote. For a couple once known for shaping the narrative, their silence became the story. By February 2nd, 2026, major outlets from The Telegraph to CNN ran identical headlines. The Sussexes stay silent. Royal correspondents described it as the loudest silence in modern monarchy. Inside Montecito, reports hinted at deep uncertainty. Sources close to the Sussex circle revealed that Harry had been blindsided by Prince William's Parliament appearance and the speed of the removal of titles bill's passage. One advisor claimed Meghan viewed the outcome as a calculated humiliation, believing the institution had coordinated its message for maximum impact. The couple's joint ventures, including a planned documentary and 2 philanthropic projects, were suddenly on hold. A senior Netflix executive told Variety that reputation management was now their first priority. Back in London, royal aides were instructed to avoid provocation. A quiet memo circulated inside Buckingham Palace, reminding staff that reform, not retaliation, was the Crown's guiding principle. Still, Tensions simmered. Social media divided sharply. Hashtags like #ProtectTheCrown and #StandWithSussex trended simultaneously. The BBC's royal editor noted that the debate had grown far larger than one couple. It had become a referendum on the meaning of loyalty, family, and freedom within modern monarchy. Behind closed doors, King Charles III reportedly reached out privately, urging restraint on all sides. "This is not about exile," he told close advisors. "It is about clarity." But even as the palace sought calm, the world's cameras remained fixed on California, waiting for a reaction that never came. The absence of words spoke volumes, and it marked a shift in tone that felt final. The story was no longer about scandal, it was about legacy. And with that, public focus turned toward the man whose speech had made it all possible: Prince William himself. The legacy of William's decision. By the end of the week, the House of Commons debate and Prince William's speech were being hailed as a turning point in royal history. Analysts on Sky News called it the quiet revolution of the monarchy. What made it extraordinary wasn't its aggression, but its precision. William hadn't attacked his brother. He had redefined royal responsibility for the 21st century. His message, that titles must reflect service, became the new standard for the Crown's relationship with the public. The removal of titles. Bill, now awaiting final review in the House of Lords, was described as constitutional housekeeping, but its deeper symbolism was impossible to ignore. For the first time in generations, the monarchy and Parliament had acted in tandem, not in opposition, to reinforce ethical governance. "This is not the end of the monarchy," wrote The Economist. "It's its recalibration." Royal historians compared the week's events to 1936, when King Edward VIII's abdication forced the Crown to redefine its place in public life. Inside Kensington Palace, aides described William as calm but resolute. He reportedly told close staff, "We are custodians, not celebrities." That sentiment resonated across the nation. YouGov's February 2026 poll showed a surge in public confidence, 74% approval for William as future monarch. Even critics admitted that his measured stance had restored something the monarchy had risked losing: credibility. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace prepared a new internal review, a code of conduct for title holders, ensuring that future royals would be bound by service, not self-interest. It was subtle reform, but the message was unmistakable. The monarchy would no longer defend privilege without purpose. As the media frenzy faded, a quiet phrase from William's Parliament speech echoed in headlines worldwide: "Duty defines us, not desire." And so, in the aftermath of a week that began with tension and ended with transformation, Britain's future king had done what few expected. Not by dividing his family, but by preserving the institution they were all born to serve. The modern monarchy had found its compass again, and at its center stood Prince William, calm, deliberate, and ready to reign. Prince William's decisive moment in Parliament has reshaped how the world views royalty, responsibility, and power. With one speech, he redefined what it means to serve the Crown. As global reactions pour in, one thing is clear: the monarchy has entered a new era, and William just set the tone.